Today I'm going to talk to you about entrepreneurship as a career. Most Turkish students do not view entrepreneurship as a career. Most Turkish students want a job. In fact, when I do this presentation in Anatolian universities, I call it Asker Memur Devleti'nde girişimci olmak. We are a country of soldiers and government officials. That's what we aspire to do. And more recently, we would like professional jobs, jobs at corporations. What I'm here to tell you is that there is another way. You don't have to work for a large corporation. I'm going to give you a short agenda, 3 topics: a societal view, why is entrepreneurship important, a personal view, why is entrepreneurship important for you, and something on how to become an entrepreneur. You can view this as an entrepreneurship 101 lecture, first lecture on entrepreneurship. Here's my societal view. It's kind of funny, I'm pointing here and now you're looking at that, right? Now, here's my societal view. It's an interesting book that I've read titled The Coming Jobs War. A few numbers from this book. The population of the world is 7 billion. Of the 7 billion, 5 billion is of working age, so age 15 and above. Of this 5 billion, 3 billion want to work. This is from Gallup. Gallup is a survey company that asks people a whole bunch of questions. They also ask one of their own questions. Do you want to work? Do you want to work? People say yes or no. Based on their thousands of surveys that they've run across different countries in the world, they're estimating that 3 billion people want to work. The total number of jobs on Earth is 1.2 billion. 3 billion people want to work, there's 1.2 billion jobs. We have a problem, okay? So worldwide unemployment is over 50%. This unemployment rate of 12% is a big lie. The Turkish unemployment at 12% is a big lie. Unemployment rates of every country are big lies. The reason why the unemployment rates come out to be so low is because in order to be classified as unemployed, you have to go to the agency 6 weeks in a row, İşkur, and tell them that you're looking for a job. Excuse me, I'm still looking for a job. I'm still looking for a job. For beginners, a lot of educated people do not even go to İşkur, okay? And they don't go for 6 weeks in a row. If you don't go to İşkur 6 times in a row, you're not classified as unemployed. But if you simply give up and go back to your village, to the farm, then you're not unemployed. Or with a, say, degree in political science, if you can't get a job and decide to drive a taxi, you're not considered unemployed. Because of all of this, unemployment rates come out to be around 12%, maybe 11, maybe 13, but the actual unemployment rate, I assure you, in Turkey, is at least 30%, maybe 40%. Among youth, we know that it's over 25%, the official rate. How could the official rate among university graduates be higher than the national rate? It appears higher because they are actually looking for jobs. When they quit looking for jobs, that rate goes down as well. So actually we have a huge worldwide employment problem, okay? The world needs more jobs. All right, who will create these jobs? Governments? Not really. Every government that I know of is trying to size itself down. NGOs, well, it's not really a major job producer, especially in countries, in developing countries like Turkey. Well, then there's large firms, banks, car manufacturers, airlines. Well, unfortunately, they are not a major source of new jobs. The total number of new jobs created by firms older than 5 years, between the years 1980 and 2005, in the US, is a big old 0. Large companies do not create new jobs. At first, this seems shocking, but it makes a lot of sense because the objective of a large company is to improve productivity, which means producing the same output with fewer people. Okay? Now, net new employment equals 0 does not mean there is no hiring. But for every person that GM hires, Ford fires the person. So the net is 0. In Turkey, the numbers are actually quite similar. Large established companies do not add to their labor force unless they expand their operations, unless they move into a new territory, or unless they spin out a new company. Now, if the governments are not going to do it, if the NGOs can't do it, and if the large firms will not do it, there's only one alternative left: startups. All new employment in the US is created by firms less than 5 years old. So Ford doesn't create employment in the US, Google does. Okay? Avis doesn't create employment in the US, Hertz doesn't create employment in the US, Uber does. Hyatt doesn't, Airbnb does. Yes?
What does NGO stand for?
Non-governmental organizations. In Turkish that would be STK. STK, Sivil Toplum Kuruluşları. So that's the third branch. The private sector, public sector, government. NGO is the third branch. Okay? I mean, just think about the past. If a large bank would announce the hiring of 3,000 employees in 1 year, for example, Yapı Kredi might employ 3,000 people next year. This would actually be big news in the newspapers in Turkey. 3,000 kişi işe alıyor. We need 750,000 new jobs every year, okay? What's 3,000? It's nothing. So large firms are not the solution to the employment problem in the country. Our unemployment rate appears to be around 12%, but it's actually much higher than that. Our labor participation rate is a pathetic 49%. OECD average is 65%, which means only 1 out of every 3 individuals is working. 75 million, only 25 million are working. Every person that works has to finance himself and 2 others. Okay? Really tough economic situation. And there are also chronic dimensions of Turkish unemployment. For example, female participation rate is sitting around 27%, while the OECD percentage is more like 2/3. University graduates, we have close to 1 million unemployed university graduates right now. So those 2 are chronic dimensions of Turkish unemployment. Now, if we are serious about solving this problem, we need to do something about new businesses or startups in Turkey. This is the Turkish population pyramid. What you see up here, these are the males, these are the females. It does look like a pyramid, but now it's turning into more like Galata Tower, okay? And that is going to continue, no matter who says what, and it's going to start shrinking at the bottom. That's a social law. As countries get richer, and as people move from the villages to the cities, they will make fewer babies, period, okay? Right now, the reproduction rate in Turkey is 2.15, and 2.1 is the replacement rate. So if that falls below 2.1, the population starts going down. In Istanbul, the reproduction rate is 1.55, so Istanbul is actually shrinking. The reason it's not shrinking is because of new migrants coming into Istanbul from Anatolia, okay? Now, according to TÜİK, our population will level off at 95 million, and then it's going to start going down. Until we get there, look at the number of old people. Now look at the number of young people. Okay? These are the people who are going to exit the labor force. They're going to retire. And these are the young people, aged 15 to 19, are those who want to enter the labor force. A lot of people want to come in, very few people are going out. Okay? So we have a problem. If this was a rectangle, we'd have no problem. We'd have the same number of people leaving the labor force as the number of people entering the labor force. But we have 13.7 million people in the 15-24 age range, and only 6.6 million in the 55-59 age range. So this means our labor force is expanding. Even though the population growth is slowing down, our labor force is still expanding because of the pyramid nature of the population pyramid. We need approximately 750,000 new jobs every year This is not to reduce unemployment, it is simply to keep unemployment constant. So if you cannot create 750,000 new jobs every year, our unemployment level will go up. And unemployment in a country is a terrible social problem. People have to have something to lose. If they have nothing to lose, then they will turn into all sorts of crime, terrorism, what have you, okay? What I see as one of the tremendous potential for huge problems for the country, for example, is the Syrians right now. We must do something about educating the Syrian migrants. We must do something about employing them, or else we're going to have a huge problem in our faces. Close to 3.5 million migrants, mostly undereducated. The educated ones are going to Europe, okay? So we don't just have a problem of educating our own youth and getting jobs for our own youth, but we have this new problem now. Reasons don't matter. The problem is there. We have to do something about it. The only way we can solve this unemployment problem and the in Turkish istihdam problem, employment problem if you like, is by creating new jobs. And large firms will not create new jobs, construction will not create new jobs. A simple comparison between Turkey and a country that has decided to grow through entrepreneurship in the recent past. The reason I think this is really interesting comparison is Israel used to be a Turkish vilayet. It used to be part of the Ottoman Empire, okay? They used to be just as poor or just as rich as the rest of the Ottoman Empire. Our population is 75 million to 8 million. The number of companies in NASDAQ coming out of Turkey is 0. NASDAQ is the stock market where high-tech companies list their products. Okay, so for example, Turkcell is in New York Stock Exchange, but Google is in NASDAQ. So if you're listed in NASDAQ, it means you have a high-tech, high-impact company. Total number of Turkish companies in NASDAQ is 0. One of my life goals is to have one Turkish company listed in NASDAQ where I am contributing something to it. Number of Israeli companies in NASDAQ is 70. Our largest exit is $589 million, Yemek Sepeti to Delivery Hero. It just happened a few months ago, you know that. Israel's largest exit is $5 billion. Startup financing in Turkey is $80 million for 60 companies. I'm depressed to say that more than half of that money came from one person, Hasan Aslanova. Okay, it's not like we have a large.
What does startup financing mean?
Startup financing is if you want to start a new business and if you want my money, I give you some money. That is your startup financing. Usually, it's not sponsorship; it's investment in a new company. Usually, 300,000 to $500,000 or maybe 1 million per company. So $80 million for 60 companies. 60 new companies came out of Turkey and 80 million was invested in those companies in the first round of investment. In Israel, 600 companies, look at the size, 1/10 the size in population, but 10 times the investment. And take my word for it, this is the only reason why Israel is 3 times, 4 times as rich as Turkey. Before they started this entrepreneurship wave, 20 years ago. 20 years ago, they just decided to get rich through entrepreneurship. Very similar countries, okay? No natural resources, surrounded by people, but surrounded by enemies, okay? Israel is surrounded by enemies, Turkey is surrounded by countries that are not particularly friendly to Turkey. No natural resources, no oil, no gold, nothing. The only resource both of these countries have is bein bedava. Okay? It's us. It's human capital. They have decided to capitalize on human capital and they become a rich country. It's of course easier for a small country to get rich. We are still sitting at 10.5, actually we're sitting at 8.5 now. This is pre-changing the value of the dollar. So this country has shown to us, has proven to us that it's possible to have a government policy or strategy saying we're going to get rich through entrepreneurship and then do it. They've actually written a book about this. It's called The Startup Nation. There's actually a recipe on how to do this. It's not magic. So now I'm going to switch to a personal view. Why should you care? We now know why Turkey should care. And actually Turkey is trying very hard through TÜBİTAK, through Bilim Sanayi Teknoloji Bakanlığı, through universities. So far, we haven't seen too many results because these efforts are sort of amateurish. They are poorly coordinated, okay? And in many instances, they're wasting money. They're not spending it smartly, and I've written about this at length in my blogs, in my blog articles. What about you? Why should you care? Well, here's a book on entrepreneurship called The Startup of You, and it says you need to view your career as a three-legged model where you have your assets, you have aspirations, and you have market realities. And you have to find something where these three areas overlap. You have to find something that you can do, something that you care about, and something that the market cares about. Of these three legs, one of them is aspiration. This is something Turkish students don't think about much. And I admit I thought about this at age 30 for the first time. What is the goal of life? Why are we living? What do I want from life? Here's a list I can give to you. Some people live for money, some people live for power, some people live for variety, some people live for a lifestyle. For some people, autonomy really matters. Some people live for altruism, doing something good for others. Some people live for security. Now, there's no right or wrong. You have to decide what you're living for. For example, if altruism matters a lot to you, then you should be a doctor, or a teacher, or a nurse, or a psychiatrist, if you really want to see that you're helping people individually. It has something to do with your career choices. From that list, everyone has to pick their top 3 or top 4. And of course, we respect all choices. But if your list includes variety, if you're bored doing the same thing, in other words, if your list includes autonomy, in other words, deciding what to do, when to do it, with whom to do it, and how to do it yourself, instead of somebody else telling you. And if that list includes altruism, doing something for others, and if you actually want to make some money, but not a small amount of money, a lot of money, so you can do more good for more people, then entrepreneurship is a legitimate career choice. In fact, you will never be rich on a salary. Even if your salary is 10, 20, 30,000, you'll never be rich. If you want to be really rich, so you can benefit others, I keep saying that because we don't get rich to benefit ourselves, we get rich to benefit others. It's kind of a foreign subject in Turkey, okay? We talk about giving all the time, but how come we are ranked 125 or something in philanthropy? Yardımseverlik indeksi. We're ranked 125 out of 140 countries. We think we are philanthropic, we think we are altruistic, but we're not, okay? There are 33 billionaires in Turkey, dollar billionaires. Not a single one has signed the Living Pledge. The Living Pledge says, when you die, you're going to give half of your wealth to a hayır kurumu. Okay? Our 33 billionaires, konuştuklarında mangalda kül bırakmayan milyarderlerimiz, none of them has signed the pledge yet. Okay? Now that's important. But Zuckerberg, 99% given away. Bill Gates has already given away more than half of his wealth to his foundation. So we call ourselves altruistic, but we're not. Data doesn't support the claim that we are yardımsever. Okay? And we need to call our milliardaires on this. We need to tell them that, hey, this is not the truth. You're not telling us the truth. I think that's the goal of life, actually, to improve the quality of life of others. And I think you actually become a happier person by doing that. And the fastest way to that path is being an entrepreneur. Because on a salary, you don't have much to give. If you make 10, 15, 20,000, you can't make a lot of people happy. You cannot help a lot of people. Well, I am suggesting that you consider a career in entrepreneurship because it's actually in your DNA. We're all groomed to be entrepreneurs from day one. It's the only way for you to change the world. You cannot change the world by simply working for someone else, taking a salary, taking orders, doing as they please. And I think autonomy matters to all of us. We're all autonomous individuals. We actually cannot be happy if we simply follow orders. We're not meant to be chess pieces. We're meant to be chess players. And of course, the alternative is horrific. Working 9 to 5 for a company, doing the same thing over and over again. Friends, I'm telling you, at least 3/4 of all individuals around you are unhappy. The reason for their unhappiness is not politics, is not making enough money, is not their wives or husbands. It's their jobs. They're working as slaves, and we're not meant to be slaves. We're meant to call our own shots, decide our own destiny. Little bit of a historical perspective on this. 2.5 million years ago, the genus Homo in Africa evolved. Okay? So the first stone tools that people can find, archaeologists can find, date 2.5 million years ago. 300,000 years ago, we started using fire. 70,000 years ago, we started speaking. This is all from a book called Sapiens, and most scientists agree on these numbers, give or take 10,000 years. Then, 10,000 years ago, something strange happened called agricultural revolution. We decided to farm the land and produce more food. And of course, we weren't used to eating grains. We were used to eating fruits and kill animals and eat meat and fruits and nuts. All of a sudden, we're eating grains. Our digestive systems are not made for consuming large quantities of grains. One of the reasons why you have stomach aches is you eat too much bread. Okay? Not meant to eat bread. Then we had the first kingdoms, scriptment, and the agricultural revolution was actually a nightmare for humans because we started living together instead of living in tribes of 100, 150 people, a village of 5,000. You had to produce more, you had to protect what you produce, so we had to invent weapons. Well, producing more meant surplus, that meant wealth, that meant landlords, that meant capital. For 2.5 million years ago, we didn't worry about, for 2.5 million years, we didn't worry about guns or protecting our wealth. We didn't have any wealth. We didn't have any landlords, we didn't have any barons, we didn't have dukes, any sultans. But over the last 5,000 years, we had all of this. And then agricultural revolution, industrial revolution, and now the information revolution. Now, I don't think these numbers make any sense to you until you see them graphically. All that green space, that's 2.5 million years, okay? Can you see that thin red stripe at the bottom? Is that visible? That's the last 10,000 years. So for all this time, we actually lived as entrepreneurs. We found our own food. We found our own cave. We made our own stones. We worried about our own well-being. No buses, no paychecks, no insurance. Over the last 10,000 years, we were put into this shackle, slavery. We became first agricultural slaves, then industrial slaves, then corporate slaves. Poor plaza people. Okay? Now, we have not evolved to be happy under the slavery conditions. This is evolution, okay? All this green stuff is evolution. The last 10,000 years is not long enough for evolution. We need at least 100,000 years of working as a slave so we can be happy as a slave. You haven't lived for 100,000 years as a slave. So therefore, you will be unhappy working for someone else, following orders, 9 to 5, every day, doing the same thing over and over again. So it is in your DNA, and just remember my words when you're unhappy and about to divorce your husband or your wife, or slap your child or whatever, when you're age 35, working as a corporate slave. Much more intelligent people than me made the same point. Muhammad Yunus, you know him, he is the founder of Grameen Bank in Bangladesh, microfinancing. used to give $100 to women so they could start their own business. Women tend to pay their loans back, you know that? Men, when they may be an entrepreneur. To me, this is really important. I really can't see. I've done it in internship, stage, in Germany for 2 months, and I realized right away I couldn't possibly work in a factory. I couldn't possibly take orders, follow orders. I was really good at it, by the way, but that didn't do anything for me. I didn't care for that kind of life. And that's when I decided that, hey, I'm an industrial engineer, but I'm going to be an academic because I don't want to work for the industry. I'm a graduate of Boğaziçi, and then I went to University of Florida to get my PhD. And then I worked in Canada for 20 years, always as an autonomous academic. You graduate, you get a job, you work 9 to 5, you do the same thing over and over again. It's really not 9 to 5, it's usually 9 to 7, 9 to 8, it's usually not 5 days, it's usually 6 days. You have a small income, you have a fixed raise, inflation is 8%, they give you a 9% raise, you're happy. What the heck is that? You remain poor, okay? You're actually happy about the lousy 9% raise, okay? You start with a salary of $2,500. What are you going to do with that money, huh? You're going to buy a house, you're going to buy a car, you're going to marry a woman, you're going to have children for $2,500, and then you're going to get 9% raise. Oh my God, that's great. Come on, get a life.
Very sorry, I have to give an example here. The other day I looked up for the dream car of mine, and the only way I can take it, I can buy it, is I should work for 583 years.
583 years. Or you can start a new business. Okay, so you have a fixed income, it doesn't really go up much. And then, I know this because I've been working at these organizations as a manager. I know how much raise we give to individuals. It's pathetic. Vacation is lousy, 20 days, and then people call you up in the middle of vacation and ask you to come back. This is inhuman, yeah? This is not meant for humans, okay? And then you race for promotions. You actually pray silently that your colleague fails so you get the promotion instead of him. What? This is disgusting. You should be able to try to accomplish something together. Okay, instead of birlikte başarmak, you have competition. It's not healthy, but that's what corporations, that's what capitalism wants from us. They want the fastest horse. They want you to run fast. They give you carrots, then. And then somebody else decides and you implement. This is really the worst. Somebody else actually decides for you what you should be doing for the next day. And even if they're not right, even if you know that they're not right, you have to do it because they're the boss. And they also manage your career. I have hundreds of disgusting stories. A story from a boss who says, well, I took this very successful retail manager and I told the retail manager that I'm moving her to Moscow. And that's a great career move for her because she's going to actually run a larger branch and I'm going to give her more money. But she has kids, yeah? She has kids at school. She doesn't want to move for more money. The boss explains as if this is a good thing, but the employee doesn't want to do it. But the employee cannot say no. The employee says, thank you, boss. Of course, boss, you know the best. And then you go. And then the boss says, I'm moving you from retail to banking. You go, what? Yeah, you're really good. You'll be fine. Or the other way around. What? I don't care about banks. I don't want to work for a bank. You can't say that. Okay? Because somebody else is managing your career. They actually move you from city to city. That's terrible. And then, of course, when you die, your tombstone reads that you were a great worker. They give you a golden watch after 40 years of working. And that's I think, a great option for robots. You know what? In 20,000 years, no one will live like this anymore. It's us that have to put up with this crap because the robots are not coming up fast enough, okay? No repetitive jobs will remain in 20 or 30,000 years. but you still have to do it. Some of you have to do it. You start the company, it actually gets quite a bit worse because instead of working for 8, 9 hours a day, you start working for 18 hours a day. You start at 7, you work till 2 a.m. And then you work for 7 days. There's no Saturday, there's no Sunday, what a joke. There's no income, there's no vacation. You eat bread and cheese for 6 months. Maybe you're going to make some money later on, but for the first 6 months, I told you that those angel investors will give you 100,000, 200,000 to start your business, but don't think for a minute that you can take some of that as salary. They'll let you take maybe 500 or 1,000 as salary so you don't die. So you can have your soup, okay? But that's all. Don't imagine you're going to get a 5,000 salary from an investor. They're not going to give you that. Okay? So yeah, it's tough going. Just like in the Stone Age. Just like 2.5 million years ago. But you actually have a team and you're doing something with the team. And you're actually trying to change the world. And you're trying to do something with the team. You're trying to achieve the unachievable as a team. And you control our own fate. And if you're successful, and of course there's no chance that you will not be successful if you try enough times, people will speak highly of you. You're saying, well, he changed the world. Okay, let's admit it. iPhone has changed our world. Okay? We don't live the same way anymore. Big taxi has changed our world. As soon as I'm done here, I'm going to call a cab on Big Taxi. I'm not going to worry about where's the taxi stand on the streets, wave hands. It's about changing the world. And I think this is actually what we're meant for. Doing something for humankind. So you can choose. You can have a corporate life, or you can try to push that stone up the hill. And of course, you're going to break your head a few times, but you're going to pick it up again and push it up again, up the same hill. So if this argumentation, and you can be an entrepreneur regardless of your field, okay? Suppose you're in medicine, you can be an entrepreneur. You can set up a website for medical assistance. You can set up a hospital. You can set up a clinic. You can provide people consulting services over the phone, over the internet. I know of no profession where you cannot be an entrepreneur. Same thing with law. You don't have to work for a law firm. You can do all sorts of things. I know entrepreneurs who are graduates of music, graduates of law, graduates of medicine, graduates of political science. It just doesn't matter. As a matter of fact, you might be surprised that your degree just doesn't matter anyway. Even if you're not going to become an entrepreneur, do you really think your degree matters? Do you really think your university diploma matters? It's what you do with yourselves. You can have any diploma with any degree. If you don't groom yourself, you're a nobody. You'll be living about 100 years, and you'll be working for about 50 years. And your diploma, I don't care from which university, has a shelf life of 5 years. So if you do not continue to learn on your own, if you do not develop yourself, you are totally useless to the rest of the society after 5 years. And I know for engineers, maybe 10% of them will actually be engineers. A lot of doctors will never practice medicine. A lot of lawyers, a lot of graduates of law will never practice law. Don't have an expectation that life is simple, okay? Don't expect that things are predetermined. They might be predestined, but we don't know what our destiny is, okay? And we actually have a lot of room to move, a lot of wiggle room in creating our own destiny. Now, how do you become an entrepreneur? Well, here's a definition for you again. An entrepreneur creates economic value by developing a new product or a service. So, innovation plus commercialization. Something new, make money doing it. Your objective doesn't have to be to make money. But if you don't make money, you cannot sustain the business. You cannot continue with the business. Therefore, money has to be a part of it. There are 3 ways of entrepreneurship. The best thing you can do is to do something that no one has done before. Brand new idea, okay? But very few people can actually do that. The second best is take something make it a little bit better. And the third is, if you can't even do that, copy something. Copy something that's been done before in the US or in Europe, copy it to the Turkish environment. For example, Bitaxi is a total copy, okay? But it's great. It makes our lives better. So that's level here. So you don't have to do something that no one else has done before. If you just copy it and fit it to the local environment, you'll love it for it. Gitti Gidiyor is a copy. They copied eBay, sold it to eBay. But actually, they improved on it. You know why? Because eBay at the time was consumed with China. eBay was wasting $100 million on China, getting its butt kicked by Alibaba in China, and they were not paying enough attention to Turkey. This made it possible for the founders of Gitti Gidiyor to grow their business in Turkey. eBay could have killed them right away. Okay? They grew the business and then they sold it for eBay for 200 million. Wonderful. But the goal is to create a difference and make meaning. Anlamlı bir şey yapmak. Bir fark yaratmak. It's actually said by Guy Kawasaki, best reason to start an organization is to make meaning, create a product or service that makes the world a better place. That's what entrepreneurship is all about. Now, money is usually a side effect of entrepreneurship. It comes if you have a great idea. Most entrepreneurs I've met, they don't care about money. It was never about money for them. They wanted to make the world a better place. Bulduğunuzdan daha iyi bırakmaktım yani. Entrepreneurs born or made, silly question. Of course they're all made. Some of the entrepreneurs, the jahil ones, would like you to think that they're born. Artists born or made, are sportsmen born or made. I'll give you a slightly more scientific answer. There are three things that you need to be an entrepreneur. Knowledge, skills, and attitude. This is 100% education. Skills is, I'd say, 60 to 80% education. Attitude is 20 to 40% education. Azim can be taught. Risk can be taught to some extent. Almost all these can be learned, so most people can be entrepreneurs. Now, few individuals cannot be entrepreneurs. I'd say maybe 1/3 of the society cannot be entrepreneurs. If you have no risk tolerance, if you're not happy with risk at all, then maybe you can't be an entrepreneur. If you have low perseverance, as in yoksa, then you cannot be an entrepreneur. If you don't like teamwork, you cannot be an entrepreneur. We don't accept single entrepreneurs for our incubation center, for example. You have to have a team of at least 2. If you just want to be a cog, you just want to be a nail, if you don't want to be the hammer, you cannot be an entrepreneur. And if you don't care about ethics, if you want to get rich quick, you cannot be an entrepreneur. It's very simple. You can only screw people once. And in the world of entrepreneurship, we find out very quickly if you are a swindler. If you do not deliver on your promises, you're dead after your first hit. So you can take the first investment, or you could be the investor and you can do something unfair to an entrepreneur only once. And everybody will know about you. No one will approach you anymore. You'll be blacklisted very quickly because it's a small ecosystem. Now, if you have these attributes, you cannot be an entrepreneur, but I actually don't know what you could be. I don't know. Now, ideal personality attributes for an entrepreneur are the following. You're an extrovert, you're positive, you're optimistic, you have energy, you are aware, you are open to new things, you can work in teams, you have a high emotional quotient, EQ, not IQ, EQ. You have perseverance and you have low risk aversion. You can live with risk. But don't look at this list and be disappointed. You don't have to get an A in every one of these topics. You can have some C's, you can have some F's. For example, Steve Jobs was not an extrovert. He was not a team player. He was a very difficult person. So he scored very low in able to work in teams and extrovert, but he had such great vision. He was so aware of opportunities. He made up for these shortcomings. So you can get some F's, you can get some C's, but as long as your A's and B's outweigh your low marks, you could still be an entrepreneur. In fact, I don't know any entrepreneur who is excellent in all of those criteria. There is no such person, okay? We are all faulty to some extent. So if you have entrepreneurial plans, I have a few suggestions for you. You shouldn't expect much from your university. Turkish universities are not built to groom entrepreneurs. We are built to groom professionals and researchers. And we don't even do that really well. We have some departments that produce entrepreneurs, but it's not ingrained in the psyche, soul of the university. Turkish universities are not entrepreneurial. You should do at least one internship and get a summer job. And even if you don't want to be an entrepreneur, you should do at least one internship and get a summer job. I started at university, okay? And I had 2 classes graduate. Every single one of the graduates of Özyeğin University found a job. How? We didn't teach them mathematics or physics or law better than everybody else. We teach the same subjects, okay? Our teachers, well, maybe they're okay, but they're not necessarily much better than others. We don't teach them English much better than others. What made the big difference was internships. Average Özyeğin student graduated with 2.5 internships, about 8 months of experience under their belt. So try to compete with a student who has 2 or 3 internships under their belt if you have no practical experience. Incredibly important. Okay, go get some practical experience. Work as a waiter. Work as a cleaning person, but get some experience. Read at least 5 books. If you write to me, I'll give you some advice. Follow entrepreneurship events and activities. A2Home organizes 52 events a year. 50 of them are free. And the 2 that you have to pay for are free to watch on the internet. Startup Istanbul and Startup Turkey. I open both. I'm the opening speaker for both. Actually, Startup Istanbul, if you watch the Startup Istanbul 2015 opening talk, my daughter opened it and she invited me to the stage. It was kind of cute. My daughter is 19 years old. Wonderful. You need to get to know the players in the ecosystem. For example, I mentioned Hasan Aslanova, I mentioned Modanisa, I mentioned Bitaxi. Make sure you invite the entrepreneurs of Nazım Salur, for example, Bitaxi, or his son, Turancan Salur. You can come and talk to you guys. Modanisa is doing, do you guys know about Modanisa? It's doing exceptionally well. 30% of their sales are exports. It's a genuine Turkish company that produces clothing for women, conservative women, and it's one of the largest players in the textiles market in the world now. I'm proud of them, and I hope they will grow even further. Bring the founders so they can talk to the students on how they thought about Modanisa and how they grew it. So bring in some of the speakers, some of the entrepreneurs and investors. Spend a day in an incubator or an accelerator. Go to an incubator. Incubator is kuluçka merkezi, accelerator is hızlandırıcı. The difference is, in the accelerators you have more services. You have lawyers, you have financial analysts, you actually give them some money, you try to bring them together with capitalists, venture capitalists and so on. Go there and just ask them, what do you do? What do you do? What's your business? What's your idea? Talk to them, spend a day there, and maybe offer your services to them for free. Abi anket yapayım senin için. Kod yazayım. Offer your services for free so you get the experience. Select 5 startups and follow them closely. I mentioned a few that I follow these days. Bitaxi, Getir, Modanisa, Alotech, Sinemia. You know Sinemia? For 59 euros you can watch as many movies as you want. No more than 1 per day. It's a subscription service, okay? You pay 59 euros a month. You can watch as many movies as you like. Sinemaksimum'a giriyorsun bedava. Her akşam gir. Okay? Interesting concept. One of my former students did that. So I follow these and then I learn from them. I cannot spot which one's going up, which one's going down, but it's fun to watch them. Offer free help to a startup. Spend 6 months working for them if you know coding. If you don't know coding, learn coding, okay? Guys, in the 21st century, 2 skills are exceptionally important. Without them, you don't exist in the 21st century. Good English and coding. Doesn't matter whether you're a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer or a business student. You have to know how to code. You have to know how to speak to a machine. Okay? Learn these. English is English. Coding starts with Python. Python. P-Y-T-H-O-N. Work for a company for 5 years. You'll be surprised to hear that from me. Work as a slave for 5 years. Because that's where you get the ideas. Then go to the company and say, I have an idea. Can I be a partner with you? I have an idea. You give me 5%, 10% of the company. We'll do it together. My brain, your money, your company. Okay? Of course, Turkish companies are not smart enough to say yes. Okay? But hopefully, I'm also doing talks to them, and I'm saying, if you don't say yes, your best engineer will walk out. Okay? This is what happens. The largest number of entrepreneurs that came to our incubation center are former Turkcell, Vestel, and so on employees who were simply disenchanted, frustrated with the lack of vision in their company. They had an idea, they had a product in their mind, but the company was not interested. Some companies in Turkey do this well, but very few. It's called corporate entrepreneurship or intrapreneurship. By the way, I am an intrapreneur. I'm an entrepreneur that works inside the university. I come up with new plans, new programs, new partnerships, new connections. All right, so assets, aspirations, market realities, where they match, you have a good idea. 5 things that matter: idea, team, technology, market, and financing. All 5 have to be good for a project to succeed. You have to have a good idea, you have to have a good team. Your technology has to exist. You cannot be ahead of your time. Your financing has to exist, and there has to be a market. Most Turkish entrepreneurs don't check the market. They have a great idea, they come to us and they say, well, we want to come to your kuluçka merkezi. Well, did you talk to potential buyers? No, but it's a great idea, isn't it? Well, I don't know. Talk to buyers. So we would send them to alışveriş merkezi, where they would interview potential customers. And they cannot come back unless they ask at least 30 potential customers. I have this idea, will you buy this for 10 liras a month? If not, how much will you pay for it? They have to ask this question. And if they are thrown out of the mall by security, they get extra credit. Many of our students were actually thrown out from the mall because they pestered the clients, the people in the mall. All right, so I want to be honest with you. Your probability of success is very low with your first investment, first project. But as you'll be doing more and more in series, your probability of success goes up to almost 1. And fail stands for first attempt in learning. Failure equals experience. You learn from your failures and then you become a better second, third, fourth round entrepreneur. There's a great word from Winston Churchill. Success consists of going from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm. Cannot lose enthusiasm, azim, o yüzden gerekli. As you go from failure to failure towards your success. You know how many tries it took to Edison to come up with the light bulb? About 1,000, right? You know how many games they ditched before they came up with Angry Birds? It was the 59th in their attempts. The first 58 games flopped, okay? So imagine if you didn't have the perseverance, you could quit after 20 games. But the 59th game succeeds. All right, so here's my address. If you write to me, I'll write back to you. Thank you.